Other thoughts? Anybody got an update on the series?
5-0 Houston, Texas
5-0
6th.
in the 6th, okay. Yeah.
The polarization is not really new in this country. It's been going on for a long time. You have bouts of it all over the place. Fought a civil war over it, you know, and stuff like that. I saw it in the 60s, as did you. This feels different. Maybe it's because it's present right now and I have a lot of experience in life to think about it. But where do you see the hope, possibility for changing and reversing some of this polarization? Do you see any hope for that happening? With social media today, that almost might be impossible. I don't know.
You're right about the cyclical nature of things. You know, if you lived through the 60s, as a lot of us did, certainly we were polarized. But in our lifetime, in my lifetime, certainly in my media lifetime, I've never seen anything like this. The attack on the First Amendment, on expression, on press, and on speech, we didn't see that in the 60s. We saw polarized public opinion, but even Richard Nixon, for whatever criminality it was, and his complaints about the press, there was a line he didn't cross, and we've not seen crossed before. So I think the current threat is existential. I've become a complete and total pessimist. I've just become a real pessimist. I'm going to be 68 in June. I think it's going to be your children and grandchildren who are going to be able to maybe bring things back to what we've lost and will lose over the next 4 to 8 years. These challenges are not going to be simple to resolve, and I think our generation has already left the field. I think we've raised our flags and retreated, and leaving it to others. There's a theory of generational activism and solution solving. I can't remember what it's called. It's an academic theory. Sociologists read enough about it. But one generation tears everything apart because of stupidity and incompetence. The next generation comes along and wrestles with the problem and identifies some solutions, and then the third generation fixes it. So the greatest generation was a fixing generation. Boomer generation was a destroying generation. Current generations are facing the chaos, and our children and grandchildren will be the generations that fix it. And
So you're saying baby boomers did this?
I think we have to take our share of the blame, Murph. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. If we had done our jobs, I don't think we'd be in this boat.
So getting tear gas in Cleveland didn't do anything?
Yeah. Yeah.
Steve, I have to tell you that my 11-year-old granddaughter is in the stage of trying to fix the world, so I think you got something.
Yeah, my son is too, bless his heart. Fruitless, but he's trying. My son's a Republican, by the way. But he did not vote for the Donalds, so we kept him in the family.
So I don't know if there's a question in this. I'm trying to mull this over as you're speaking, but throughout my life I've tried to take in breadth of news reporting, a variety of sources, and trying to get the conservative and the far left and mostly in the middle. And lately, when I see what I've thought of as mainstream news in print or on television or on radio, I find that it's more of the progressive messaging, the more liberal messaging. And it just seems to me that there's one more chaotic thing that comes out of the White House, or there's some, accusation of false facts or whatever it is, fake news. Something more outrageous or terrifying than the day before, and mainstream news media are reporting that in what I have come to trust as being sort of the factual representation. So from your perspective, as someone who's worked in news for a long time in journalism, what does it mean that the news media are under greater threat from the political forces that are in place now because they're reporting the facts in such a terrifying or embarrassing way?
I don't think we'd be where we were if Donald Trump had not been elected president.
Right.
And the reporting on Trump, which has fueled his campaign against a free press and the First Amendment, is strictly a function of his election. But it does cast a left liberal light on the mainstream media that's reporting all this stuff, because it seems like a drumbeat of anti-Trumpism, which is perceived by his base as being liberal fake news. The real failure, I think, is on the part of conservative media. What you don't really have outside of maybe the Wall Street Journal, and I'm not even sure I put them there anymore, because they've kind of moved to the left with Donald Trump. You don't have conservative media that are doing, for conservative concerns and issues, what the New York Times and the Post are doing for those who are concerned about Donald Trump. What you end up with is Fox News, which is, how many of you watched Fox this week? I know, it's hard. Yeah, you gotta kind of force yourself to. They spent the
I
whole
have
week.
no choice, I'm helping someone, and that's what's on their TV.
Okay. Well, they spent the entire week undercutting the Mueller investigation, essentially agreeing with and reasserting the line that there's nothing there, that it's fake, that it's Democrats. In fact, what was the cartoon we saw the other day, that they've now discovered evidence that Hillary killed Lincoln? So the conservative media, because it's not doing its job, is contributing to the polarization. It is helping frame everybody else as being liberal and unreliable. If there was a reasonably competent conservative media, you know, I don't know that we'd be in quite this same spot, but there isn't. And Fox News is immunizing Donald Trump from whatever Mueller comes up with.
But let's go back to last year, when CBS and other media gave Trump, what, $2 billion worth of free coverage?
Oh, yeah.
And it said, oh, but it's great for CBS's bottom line.
Absolutely. CNN, their ratings were never higher. And Morning Joe, which has become on MSNBC, is about as anti-Trump as any show in the country. They were in Trump's pocket during the campaign. And the New York Times was guilty of false equivalency. In their efforts to be unbiased, they gave as much space to the phony baloney Benghazi and Hillary email controversy as they did all the Trump stuff. So yeah, I mean, it's an imperfect process, but in general, we've created this perception that if you're writing anything negative about Trump, you're fake. And Fox is immunizing him from the Mueller investigation. He's going to be Teflon.
Where's Molly Ivins when we need her?
Oh, yeah, I agree. There aren't a lot of people like that left anymore. We should probably, I think, call it quits.
Well, if we have a couple of questions, I don't know.
I'll stick around for a bit. I'm across the street. I live across the street. I'll have another piece of cake and some cider.
Well, I appreciate everybody coming out tonight. It was a wonderful talk, and I appreciated Steve. And let's say figure.